Welcome back. Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining me. First of all, I want to start with your story because if I got it right, you're from Portugal, right? Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes, I am from Portugal. I was raised in kind of a small town until 10 or 11 years old. And then my parents decided to move to Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, like a big city. Um, Very popular at the moment. Lots of people love traveling to Portugal and to Lisbon. And I lived there until I was 20 years old. Uh, Growing up in the city, it was good because it gave me the opportunity to explore and meet so much more than just living in a small town where nothing happens, right? So I think living in a space like that is great. And I was always a curious type of kid that wanted to try new things, explore new things. Uh, and I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial mind, even as a teenager. So I remember um, getting my first computer and immediately checking how can I make money working from home, and that was
Yeah.
cool. Anyway, so at the age of 20, I was running a business in Portugal with a franchise from England,
Nice.
where they decided to shut down the Portugal operation. So it was nothing to do with me or my business. It was just the big guys decided, oh, Portugal is not big enough for what we're looking for, and they shut down the operation for me and everybody else that had a franchise in Portugal. And that was a problem. I didn't know what to do. And it was really difficult for me to accept the fact that I had lost what I was building. At that point, a friend from here said, why don't you come here? You know, it was like summertime. Why don't you come here for a couple of months until you figure out what to do next? And I said, yes, that's a great, sounds good, sounds great. So I think in a week or two, I was, with a backpack coming to the UK. Very exciting. Somebody said to me, "Yeah, just we'll find you a place to stay, and if you want to stay for a couple of months, you might as well find a part time or something like that, so that you can make some money." I said, "Okay." So when I came, that is, I'm gonna make it short, but it was a long story because actually, when I came here, there was no really a place to stay. There's no room. Uh, and whoever told me, oh, yes, we have a job lined up for you, also didn't have a job lined up for me. So it was difficult when I first arrived to England. Like many, many, many other people that move to another country will relate to that for sure, because they have this idea that everything is going to be great. And it turns out many times it's not that great. So I was living with a family that they were drinking heavily, they were smoking inside the house, and they offered me the living room floor to sleep in while they were partying, smoking, and drinking.
Great.
I did find a job when I first came to the UK. I was working in a factory. I didn't speak English, so I didn't have many options at all. This is about 16 years ago now, almost 17. And yeah, so for the first few months, for the first 6 months maybe, it was extremely difficult to adapt. But I didn't want to admit that it might have been a mistake. So I didn't tell to anybody. Hi, Shalini. I didn't tell to anybody back in Portugal that I was struggling here
Yeah.
at the start. It was kind of an ego situation, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't regret a bit because it was a great experience at the end of the day. It led me to where I am right now. I started meeting other people that they liked me. I would like to say that, and they helped me, move from that terrible place, going to live in a better place, a better family. And then I had to focus on for the first year to really learn the language, because that would be the only way for me to move forward and to be able to do anything. And then one thing led to the other. I changed jobs multiple times, and I ended up working with a company that does mortgages for people that are buying properties, and they work with investors as well. And I also managed many properties, hundreds of properties for landlords, and that's kind of where I learned a lot about other options and how people are making money out there.
Interesting. I want to go back to one of the very early things you said. You said you had an entrepreneurial mind at young age. Would you just tell me a bit more about how did you know that? Because I've seen and read a lot of things on the internet. A lot of people will say they've had this kind of mind, but they never explain how that really happened. How did they know and stuff like that? Because I really wasn't. I was a kid who would play video games all the time, so I didn't really know. But since I'm a curious person, I wonder, how did you watch any video? Did you come from an entrepreneurial family? What sparked?
Not at all. Idea? Not at all. I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family at all. My dad had just, it was a different time, different age, different culture. And so he was working probably since he was 10 or 11 years old, and he stopped school very early days. Same with my mom. So they were just a humble, hardworking family. Growing up from young age, I would say probably since I was 12, 13 years old, once you start really understanding what other people are doing, or at least maybe not understanding, but observing what other people are doing, I knew that some of my friends were playing those video games, and I wasn't interested in it. I was trying to figure out ways how I could make money so that I could do stuff without having to ask my parents for money. That was I think that's how it came about. So at the age of 16, I got my first job. I was still in school. And I decided to look for a part-time. So what I did was I was working the normal hours in school, secondary school at that age. And then I was working from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m., 4 hours a day in a call center. Okay. And it was, I think the first one that I did, it was kind of those surveys that you do and annoy people, asking for a bunch of questions until they hung up on you. And that kind of builds a little bit of resilience, because you learn how to receive those no's all the time, people hanging up on me all the time. Then I changed and did the same type of job, but it was on a sales team, and we were selling kind of mobile contracts or landline contracts, stuff like that, which gave me another skill, which was sales, and talk to people. But my priority at that time, to answer your question, was I didn't want to ask my parents for money. I wanted to be able to do things on my own. And at the age of 16, I managed to stop asking my parents for money because I had that part-time. And that gave me the feeling, oh, this is great, but how can I make more money? I don't have to ask for my parents anymore, so I can go out to, spend money with friends, etc., etc. But I knew that wasn't sufficient. So that's how it started. It was honestly to be independent.
Okay, interesting. And do you have any crazy stories about what you tried doing when you were younger? Any funny thing that you tried to make real? Like, you had any big ideas?
Actually, I do, because I was still so young. So you're kind of a bit naive and you just go with the flow, and whatever people suggest, you just try and go for it, which is a great thing to do. I do recommend people to try and see what works, what it doesn't, what relates to your personality, what relates to your values, your morals, etc., etc. As I was searching at maybe the first year that I was trying to figure it out, how can I make money working from home? I saw these adverts. I can't remember anymore if it was a newspaper, if it was a forum, but I saw this advert that said, we'll teach you how you can make money working from home. Sending letters and closing envelopes, something like that. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I work, I study from early morning and I come home late. So this would be great to do it exclusively from home. So I had to pay 25 euros at the time, 25 euros to receive a package. And so I paid these 25 euros. The payments had to be made through the post office. So they weren't tracked. They weren't linked to anybody, Anyway, I paid these 25 euros. I received a package that told me, all you have to do, in simple sentences, all you have to do is put these adverts up and charge 25 euros to people to send them this pack that tell them how you just made your first 25 pounds. It was a complete scam. Really bad. And in my yeah, that was funny. Looking back, it was funny. At the time, I was really annoyed. I was like, oh, I just lost 25 euros. But wait a second. I thought for myself, I'm not going to lose 25 euros. So I'm going to put an advert up. I'm going to sell this at least once so that I get my 25 euros back. So I sold that to one person and then I stopped there.
Oh my god, that is bad, but that is hilarious. I mean, but how old were you? 16, did you say?
Yeah, well, for that one, I'm not even sure if I was 16 already. It might have been earlier, because at 16, I figured that I could get a job, right?
Yeah.
But in Portugal, you cannot get a job before 16. Here in England, you can be 12 and you can be doing a little bit of a part-time working for somebody and get paid for it legally. In Portugal, that's not the case. I had to be 16. So I think I did that probably like at 14 or 15 years old.
That must have been almost a traumatic experience to get that letter.
Well, but again, everything that you do, it kind of gives you a lesson, because it helped me shape my morals and understand this is something I don't want to be doing to people. Somebody to me, it's not something I want to be doing to people. Surely there are other ways that I can be making money that are actually legit. And maybe I can even help people while making money.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think we are in. Where you said when you were 20, that was 17 years ago. So that was what, like 20 years ago. So that's crazy. There was the Ponzi schemes, I think they call them nowadays, and or pyramid schemes. It's crazy that was still that was already going on so many years ago, because now it's more of a known thing, especially with courses. So many courses are like, let me teach you how to make 10K per month, and it's all a scam. And then people go do that to other people to get their money back, and it's just a perpetual cycle of other things. And it's crazy that it was a thing even more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was a thing way before, actually. It has always been around, probably just in different ways, and technology just made it to a whole other level. But stuff like that probably has been happening in the last 50 years, I would say, even longer.
That is quite interesting. I've never really thought about that. But yeah, Anyway, that is a hilarious story. And
Have
as you
you
said,
have you ever participated in any of these? Yeah, you could call it pyramid schemes or anything like that, or of that structure. Have you ever been involved with anything like that?
no, I haven't. Luckily, no. They did teach us in. I'm just thinking back to uni days. I think in one of the first years, we did. It was either business or marketing, and they were
Mm-hmm.
telling us about potential things. And I remember they were giving us, at first they were leading us into that topic, and they were like, well, you can buy something, and then you can get two people to do that, and then those two people can get then four people to do that, and then it was, I can't remember exactly what was happening, but can't remember exactly what they were saying, but essentially it got to a point where we were thinking, that is just so scammy. Why would you do that? And then they were like, well, it is a pyramid scheme and it is a big scam, and never do that. But it was a great story because they were telling it in a way that it was, a legitimate business that you'd think, oh, that's amazing. Why don't I do that? That makes so much sense. But then as you go on, you were thinking, what are they actually selling? It's like you only have to get five people for you working for you, and then those five people essentially need five people for themselves. And then at the as they were talking about it more and more, and it was just like, that does not sound too good because you're not really selling anything. It was just I can't remember exactly.
I kind of have maybe a controversial opinion on pyramid schemes. So
Okay.
most people, probably 95% of people on a pyramid scheme will lose money.
Yeah.
But that works on a pyramid scheme and on a legit company. Most people will not make money. If I tell you, I've got this product, go and sell it. Yeah, the chances are, unless you're really good, you're not really going to make a lot of money. You are literally exchanging time for commissions that are not that great in most situations. And the big guys on the big company, the CEOs and the managers, they are making the money. So pyramid schemes are not that different than any other type of business. The guys at the top will win. The guys at the top will make the money. So on a pyramid scheme, yes, there is this idea of they're scamming people. Then if it's like no product, then I agree, it's a scam. There's no product. So it's just exchanging money from one wallet to the other. But if there's a product, you can make money if you are good enough. I think there's much worse things in terms of scamming people to talk about, including taxes, and not just in England, but all over the world. Most places there are some tax havens, great, but a place like England, let me just, as an accountant, you working to become an accountant, I know that the big difference between people that work a 9 to 5 and business owners is that people that work a 9 to 5, they pay taxes before they receive their wages. And as a business owner and someone have a company like me, I only pay taxes on the profits. And it's very easy, and it's not illegal, to make sure my company doesn't have that much profit.
Yeah.
And I don't pay that much tax, right? Then, so let's say you receive £100,000 a year. For £100,000 a year, you're actually not even on the normal personal income tax level. You are paying over 20% tax. Is it 24? No, is it 40%?
Yeah.
You're paying 40%. They're now wanting in England to increase to 42%, which is not great. So if you make £100,000, you're actually receiving £48,000. So you work for £100,000 and you receive £48,000. That is a scam, and you're being robbed.
Tax
Yeah,
is
I can. I think I can say that. Freedom of speech and whatever. I can say that stuff on a live on Substack. Being robbed because you only get less. It's crazy. And then, so you only make that much money. You only receive £48,000, and then you go and buy a mouse, and 20% is tax. And then you take it home. But when you take it home, for you to have that home, you are paying tax. In England, it's council tax. In other countries, there will be a different tax, but homeowners will always pay some sort of tax, annually, monthly, whatever it is, in most countries, to be able to have that home. So from those 100,000, they took 42% now, and then they took another percentage because you just need to leave. You want to get out of the house, drink water, you pay tax on that water. If you want to switch on the light, you pay tax on that. So one of my mentors is big guy on talking about tax and money. He says that actually you want to keep about 30% of the money that you keep. Everything else is tax. That is a scam, not the pyramid scheme guy. That is a scam. Anyway, I'm not sure if that's where the conversation was supposed to lead today. So we can move on to the next. We can move on to the next topic.
It is an interesting topic actually, because one of the reasons when I was younger, I was thinking of doing accounting was because I wanted to help people to pay less tax, because I don't exactly agree with tax. I think there are obviously benefits. For example, you mentioned council tax in the UK for owning a house, or even when you rent, you as what they call them, landlords, the person owning the tenant. So if you're a tenant, you pay the council tax, which in a way makes sense, because you'll have the bin people come in and collect your bin, which you don't pay for because you pay it through the tax. I don't agree with the amount, because they're insane amounts. Like I think you pay about £2,000, which is insane if you think about it, because I think they say you pay for the police, you pay for the bin people, you pay for the roads, which they don't get fixed. So it's like, well, where's my money going? And in that way, it is a big scam. So I think the biggest scam is VAT. What you were talking about, a mouse. I don't know where my mouse is now, but yeah, you buy anything in England, most of the things are 20% VAT. And that is a big scam, because when I learned about it, I thought everyone pays for 20%, right? Businesses between businesses will pay 20%. And actually, it's not. Only the consumer, a non-business consumer, will pay tax. So if I'm a business and I buy your services and you add to VAT, well, I will get that VAT back, right? I will submit my VAT every 3 months or a monthly, depending what structure you're on, and you get that money back. But I, as a personal consumer, I don't submit VAT every year, or every month, or every quarter, and that's a scam, because it's like, well, what did I pay for? Because when the factory buys its materials, it'll pay VAT, and then they'll get the VAT back. Then they sell it to someone else, they charge VAT on it, and then the other person can claim their VAT. And it's like, well, everyone keeps getting their VAT back, apart from you as a consumer. So I think that is the biggest scam, because there is no benefit at all. So, for example, you were talking about income tax, which I don't agree with the percentages, because they're all a bit too high. But for example, in here we get NHS for free, so you can go see a doctor. We have fire people, police, they also get paid through that, and all these things. But then it's a bit too much. But as I'm saying, compared to VAT, there is some benefit.
Yes.
It's overpriced.
I don't disagree with taxes. Taxes are necessary. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk politics or anything like that. I refuse to talk politics. But taxes are necessary, right? So, but it's about the structure, about the percentages, like you said. I'm completely, I don't like the idea of trying to charge more tax for the person that actually is doing something incredibly important for the community. And that, I mean, the super wealthy does not care about tax. They know how to pay less tax. I was about to say avoid. They don't avoid tax at all, but they know how to don't pay much tax. They're simply structures, trusts, personal management companies, sheltered assets. There's so many different ways to reduce the amount of tax that you pay. The super wealthy knows how to do it. The problem is the people that are workers and that make a lot of money. A doctor that makes 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, he takes home less than half of what he makes. And that is not fair, because the person that didn't go to university, didn't try that hard, okay, it could be life circumstances, whatever, they only pay 20%. That's not fair. It's just not fair. Let's try and take from the wealthy. He's not wealthy. The doctor that receives 200,000, he lives well, he pays for everything. He's not wealthy, because if he was wealthy, he was not working 12, 14, 16 hours a day. Okay, so, and that is the problem when it comes to tax. They're trying to take money from the people that are doing important things, managing big companies. Without those big companies, you wouldn't get the mouse, you wouldn't get the healthcare that you need. You wouldn't get taught at university, because those high-paid jobs, those are the ones that are paying the most tax, and that is not fair, because they are important jobs.
Well, that's why they don't teach business or tax at school, because if everyone was evading, because that's what the legal way of doing it is, evade. You can't avoid taxes, you can evade them.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's the word I needed.
No, that's right. I need to be careful with what I say, because obviously I don't want to get disbarred or anything. But yeah, so you can evade tax, not avoid it. Or perhaps it's the other way around. See, I always get them mixed up. I always try and make a conscious effort of saying them right. Anyway,
no, you cannot. Yeah, you cannot avoid. You cannot avoid. Tax.
Yeah.
Tax evasion. I don't know. Anyway, anybody that is watching, make sure you do your own research. Big disclaimer here: we don't know what the correct word is, but it doesn't matter. My opinion is
not a professional.
Are a bigger scam than pyramid schemes.
Yes, that was the topic.
They pay their taxes.
Right, I wouldn't. Yeah, not professional advice, by the way. Yeah, right. So,
yes,
my question to you, that is, going away and evading all the tax questions, is
okay.
How did you? Have you always known about the many income streams, or how did you come about that idea? Because I think a lot of people don't know that, to become wealthy, you need multiple incomes of streams of income. Sorry.
Well, I'm not wealthy. Okay, let's also put that disclaimer out there. I'm not wealthy. Otherwise, you would have to pay me to be talking to me. But I know quite a few wealthy people, so learning from them is important. How do I got to know them? I knew that I needed to change the circle of people that surround me. And how did I know that? Because I was doing research. As I, got older, and as I experimented the different ways, that's how I found out, oh, actually, this works. So I'll do it. Affiliate marketing. I've been doing it for 15 years, maybe longer now. But it's kind of boring. You're not going to just be doing affiliate marketing for your whole life, because it doesn't really teach you anything. You don't grow as a person if you just do that, right? So you kind of look for the next thing. And I remember doing research and seeing on probably YouTube how people were making money. And that's a great way to explore new ideas. YouTube. You have videos about absolutely everything on YouTube. So there I had forex trading, which I was like, oh, this is amazing, and very, very quickly I realized this is a bad idea. You can lose money really, really quickly. However, stocks and shares can be much, much more. I don't want to say safe. Again, because people will listen, so there's always an element of risk. But doing it right, it is safer. It is easier. Or the chances of losing money are much lower. Let's put it that way. And also, it takes longer to make money, but when you learn and when you do it right, it just compounds. So you kind of have to be patient and just understand that as you start to grow a portfolio and you start with perhaps £1,000, something like that. And by the way, people can start with much less money nowadays. The platforms where you buy stocks and shares let you do it probably for like £10, $10, and you can start. And I know that that's almost ridiculously small, but you start, right? And if you do that, maybe every week put another £10, or if you can't, put it in every month. It's going to compound eventually until you understand what are the stocks that work better for you, the ones that you learn the best, you feel more comfortable buying and selling, and you just go from there. Then having multiple income streams, I probably learned from one of my mentors years ago, where he was talking about don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Most people will have their job and that will pay for your bills, and it's really important for you to learn how to live within your means based on how much you make. And if you can find better jobs that will, pay you more, that's great. But always be very responsible and perhaps even learn from somebody, from some content creator, something like that, that can teach you about budgeting and about the taxes that matter to you if you just have a job, but then also be curious about how can I have a second source of income. And getting that second source of income, it's very, very important, probably more important now than ever, because the economy in the world is just so crazy at the moment. Things go up and down, and I think people are struggling. The average person with an average job and salary, life is not easy at the moment. Inflation is just crazy. Things that costed £1 last year, this year now is £2. Some of them doubled in price. But then government will tell you that inflation is 4%, and it's complete bullshit. But that's just like any other statistic. You can read it however you want it. What do you include it, what you don't include. But anyway, so having a second source of income is very, very important. I recommend that people find something that relates to them. If you like sales, try sales, try to sell a product. You can sell other people's products. You don't need to create a new product. If that's what you want to do, great. Create a product and sell it. If it's stocks and shares, if it's a side hustle, if it's writing a book, starting a community, do classes for something that you know how to play the guitar, teach other people how to play the guitar. There is a million different things that you can do to get a second source of income. Now, the interesting bit is that you should try and get a source of income that you enjoy doing, and then turn that into your main stream of income. You don't need to quit your job, at least not until you are 100% confident that your second income becomes your number one source of income, and that is paying you more than your job. At that point, then I would consider for sure, okay, should I should I leave the job or reduce my hours, things like that. But it will allow you to work closely to something that you love.
That is great advice, because I'm also a believer in the fact that you should go and try many things and see what you like, and I quite like that. Though I am very curious, because you said you don't have to quit your job until a secondary income replaces your primary source of income. I'm very curious about that 9 to 5 crossed out just behind you. Could you talk to us? What is the gist of, what's the idea of crossing out 9 to 5? Because it sounds like you're not very against 9 to 5, but then I was just curious about the contrast of what you're saying and just the 9 to 5 being crossed out behind you.
So that is because I have a job and I don't want to have a job. I love doing stuff. I love working. But here's the thing. As you grow businesses and as you make more money, and that's why I said earlier, make sure that you live within your means, and that because cash flow is just so important. Wealth, let's say a lot of businesses or people that have money, supposedly have money, they go out of business because of cash flow. I could have 50 properties and that makes me quite wealthy, right? If my cash flow is bad, I could go out of business, even though I've got a multi-million-pound portfolio. And that is to explain why I have a job. Because even though I'm a property investor and I receive rental income, which is my number one source of income, and I have other small businesses on the side that make a little bit of money, as you make more money, people tend to change their lifestyle.
Yep.
So if you have a family, you might be spending a lot more money on holidays or on education, on the clothes that you buy, anything. And I'm probably the least materialistic person that you will meet. I don't do brands. I don't do designer clothes. I don't do any of that. I couldn't care less about what car we have. But I do care about what we eat, what school the kids go to, things like that, right? So as I made more money, I changed some things in my life, including the house where I live, etc., etc. So if I have stopped today my 9 to 5 job, that will be a very big hit on my total income.
Yeah.
So I need to work that job, even though it's not my primary source of income. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I need to make even more money from business to the point where I'm absolutely comfortable to say, if I quit the job, it's not going to make a difference in my lifestyle. It's not going to make a difference for my family.
Okay, interesting. And I think you touched on something. I was actually one of the very first lessons I learned in finance is that cash flow is king, because you can have a multi-billion-dollar company, but if you got no cash, you will most likely go out of business. So
exactly.
always take care of your cash, because profit isn't the only thing that matters. Profit looks great on the books, especially you can play around with the numbers to pay less tax. But if you got no cash, can't really do much. So that was. I'm glad you touched on that, because that is, I think, one of the most important lessons anyone can learn, no matter what business you're in, just as a person, that cash is king. That's why I think it's important to always have a bit of money stashed away for any emergency. And just
it's important that to touch on a couple of things there, because yes, cash is really, really important. In a business, cash flow is king, making sure that you have enough cash to run your business. In the event something bad happens, you still have cash to pay for all your business operations, etc., etc. For the individual that is working a 9 to 5, cash is really important too, because like I said, you need to make sure that you are making more money than what you are spending. So it's important to have a buffer. What would happen if you broke a leg and you cannot work for the next 6 months? By the way, if you live in England, something like income protection can be a lifesaver, and can really help you. It's something you can get with an insurance broker. So I recommend for the people living in England to look at that. And if you live in another country, do your research and see what the options are. But how can you protect your income from your job? That's something very important. So having maybe a 6-month buffer, something like that, it's very important, but it's not good. And this is what I want to make sure that I pass across. It's not good to have the mentality of I want to have loads of cash in my bank account. And when I say loads of cash, I'm talking your life savings. Yes, you should have a 6-month, maybe a 1-year buffer, but any more than that, you're going to be losing money. Literally losing money, burning cash every single day. Because if you keep £300,000 in your bank account and you're receiving 1% interest, 2% interest on that money, and the inflation is at 20%, your buying power with those 200 or 300,000 pounds next year, it's much lower. Definitely. And I want to put it really, really, really simple. 10 minutes ago, I said that something that costed £1, let's say a cucumber, it costed £1 last year, and now it costs £2. Cucumber is a bad example. Let me think about something else. A toothbrush, it was £1 last year, and now is £2. That means that with the same amount of money, with £100,000, last year I could buy 100,000 toothbrushes. This year I can only buy 50,000. That's the simplest way to put it. So money in the bank loses its value. The amount is still the same, but the nominal value is still the same, but it loses its value, its power, its buying power. So too much money in the bank, it's bad.
No, that is good. What do you call it? I forgot what the name for it is, but that's a good point, because that is, I'm no believer in money hoarding, because that's what I call it. You just hoard your money and say, well, what are you going to do with it? It's like just sitting in the bank doing absolutely nothing. So no, I completely agree with you. I think everyone should get I call it the magical number, whether that's 6 or 12 months, whatever you're comfortable with, and always have the buffer, as you say, and use the money, invest it into something, whether that's yourself, your skills, or in another stream of income that will help you make more money, and then get more money to make more money, and the cycle is perpetual from there.
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting question I have for you is, would you say, because I think you said you're a property investor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you say, because a lot of people have properties, would you say that's one of the best sources of income to have? Like when you have a lot of money sitting in the bank, would you say property is probably one of the best things to invest in? Or would you say it's just your personal preference? What would you say to an average person? Should they ever consider that?
Everybody should consider owning assets, whether that's property or other sort of asset. Now, when I say assets, it needs to be an asset that is going to increase in value and pay you recurring income over time.
Yeah.
Property is definitely the easiest way to achieve that. Also potentially one of the safest ways to achieve that. And depending where you are based in the world, you're going to have different rules, different taxation rules, and that is going to make it better or worse for you. You should not invest in property without knowing what you're doing. I think that's very important to say. If you learn how to invest in property, then it can be incredibly powerful, a very, very good way to make money, while you sleep.
Yeah.
And it's so most people with money, it doesn't matter where they made their money. It could be a tech guy in China that made millions, on blockchain, whatever you did, you made a lot of money, sold a company, built a company, sold it for a 10x. Where do they put their money? In property. Most people, whoever it is, name somebody, you check their records, they put their cash into property, because property holds the value. You could be buying gold, you could be buying silver, you could be buying so many different things, but it needs to be assets that is going to keep the value and is not going to lose its value. There's no point in buying a car that is going to lose its value. But if it's a classical car that is going to increase in value over time, then that's an asset. It's not paying you recurring income, but I say recurring income is important because of the cash flow element. So property allows you to build a portfolio of properties, and there's many, many, many different ways to make money from properties. It doesn't have to be buy a property, put tenants in. It doesn't have to be that anymore. There's many other ways to make money from property. But property will allow you to, yes, receive rent and build cash flow as well as asset at the same time. That's why property is so strong when it comes to investing.
Interesting. And because I think you got your expertise in that from, you said you worked in a real estate, was it real estate agency?
Well, the real estate agency helped me become curious about it. It's not necessarily where I learned about it. I learned by getting a mentor, and that's what you should do for anything really that you want to be good at it. Don't try and do it alone. Don't try and learn off YouTube videos, because you're only going to learn the basics. If you want to learn the secrets, you need to get somebody that has been there, and that can pass their knowledge on to you. That needs to be with a coach or with a mentor.
Okay, and what would you say? Because that's one of the things when I started doing my own business. That's a lot of advice on the internet says find a mentor. Get someone to help you, a coach or someone who be there for you to ask questions. They'll give you the secret ingredients that may not necessarily be out there on the internet. And I've been pondering on that for a year, and I was like, well, how do the mentors I'd love to have, they have a busy life and they don't have time, holding someone's hand who knows pretty much nothing. So my question to you is, how would one go about finding mentors?
So first of all, you need to find your people. I don't know about accountants, right? So I don't know who they are, but I'm sure you know where to find events that are dedicated for accountants, forums that are dedicated for accountants, communities that are dedicated for accountants. Within those communities, you will create relationships with people. They will recommend somebody that helped them. They should be your mentor. Yeah. So if you I would never recommend for people to just search on Google or on ChatGPT, because Google is something people are not doing anymore. Now, there, I think, is still the number one search engine, but that's going to change. Anyway, I wouldn't just search on Google, because on Google, you will literally find the highest bidder when it comes to sponsorship, to paid ads. And if you are clever enough to ignore the paid ads, the ones that aren't paid have the best marketing team. They worked really hard on search engine optimization, and so they are on the first page. I could have a terrible business, as in getting people results as a mentor, but be on the first page anyway, because the marketing team is great. So I wouldn't go about that way. I would try and get a recommendation from somebody. And if you find a community of accountants, be somebody that had good results with the mentor. A mentor don't have necessarily to be an experienced accountant. It could just be somebody that has experience in growing a business or an experience in a skill that you lack of. So if what you need is how do I grow my business and take it to the next level, you just need a business mentor. And he doesn't need to know much about accountancy. He needs to know how a business works, how to manage business in terms of managing people, finding clients, and then dealing with problems. That's what you need help with, because finding clients is actually for the marketing team to sort it out, you know. And what you want is to figure out how to make decisions, how to deal with the stressful situations of being a business owner, how to manage work-life balance. That sort of thing is a mindset mentor that is more important than anything else.
Okay, interesting. That is. Well, that's good to know. Well, I have to say that is a great way of doing that, and I would definitely be doing some of my research. And yeah, it's quite nice that you talked about SEOs, because I think you are right. Sometimes you don't have to be good at getting people results if you have a good team or someone who knows how to build your website and optimize the SEO. Then you don't have to be good at your business. You can just be one of the very first results. So yeah, that's something to be mindful of. And whilst you're talking, I realized we have been talking for quite a while. It's getting up to an hour, and I don't want to be taking too much of your time. So I think we can come to a close, unless you had, because I've actually exhausted all my questions, and
Okay.
unless you have any questions, because that's what I was most curious about. And thank you for all your answers. They've been very insightful, so thank you for that. And I don't know if anyone in the chat have any questions. Perhaps you have one last question if you want, David. And if not, then I think.
Yes, I want to ask you a question as well, because now learning a little bit more about you and your views, like you talked about tax, and then you said VAT, etc., etc. So I'm just curious about what made you go this path, and why accountancy. If it just happened, as I believe that most people, that's what happens in their life. You just land there and you go for it, or if it's something that you always wanted, and if it's something that you see yourself doing for the next 40 years.
Ooh, probably 40 years. That's quite far away, and I wouldn't want to bet on that. But it started back in college. I was someone who was very laid back. I didn't really care about the future. I always thought of, I'll just figure it out at some point, until I got to the point of being in college. They're like, well, now you have to choose a subject that you will do, that you will then progress onto uni and then onto your career. And well, I was like, oh. So I looked at my interest at the time, which was probably about 9 years ago, I think. I think that's when I started going to college. So, I was like, well, I like numbers, so I like maths. And then I was like, I like business, I like finance. I was like, what can I do? Then I was like, well, I don't want to go too much into maths, because when you gain big knowledge in maths, you can't really do much with maths itself, unless you want to become a university teacher or answer one of the, I think, big 6 math questions. You can't really do much with that knowledge. So I was like, not really. And then I stumbled upon accounting. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And yeah, I gave it a go, and I stuck with it, because I was like, at that time, I didn't know much about life, and I was trying to be reasonable with a career that had high potential of making big money in the future. And I also, back then, I was also thinking about tax, and I was also very negatively opinionated against tax. I was like, it's nonsense. People shouldn't pay tax. So I was like, let me go in accounting, help people pay less tax. So that is probably the reason. Now looking back at it, I think that was the main reason, because my family's kind of all over the place in terms of their job. So I didn't have any of those. Oh, you should become a doctor because our whole family's a doctor. So I didn't have any of that. I had a free hand to choose whatever I want, and at that time, accounting just sounded like the most reasonable thing. I also did computer science, but I think because we didn't. Well, I don't want to blame a teacher, but back then I was blaming that our teacher wasn't that great, and all the enthusiasm that I had towards computer science was shattered because as much as I was looking forward to every class, it was just plain boring, and all my motivation died within the first 3 lessons. And also the fact that we were learning Microsoft VB, I think it's called, which is one of the, well, apparently they say it's good language, but at the same time it's quite useless because like C++ or C# or Java even Python is a lot better and more useful, especially now with the LLMs to know. And we never did. All we learned was Microsoft VB, which was I think they were saying it's one of the easiest languages to learn because it is based off of English language. So, all the commands and stuff are somewhat English words instead of specific weird names and stuff that are perhaps in C++ and Java and Python. So yeah, I think because that's what I did in college. I was like, okay, so I started psychology, I was computer science and accounting. I was like, those are 3 my interests. Let's see where it takes me. And I enjoyed accounting most, probably because we had the best teachers there, and I found a lot of fun in there. And by the end of college, they asked me, where do you want to go to uni? And I was like, well, I might as well just continue doing accounting because at that time it was the most sensible thing. And would I continue doing that for 40 years? I don't know. I'm finding less and less fun with it in terms of it's not really that. I like to challenge my mind, and at the moment there's not much challenging. It's a lot of rules, just like remembering that it's actually tax avoidance that's legal, not tax evasion. Yep. Tax evasion is illegal. I googled it. So yeah, I don't remember rules. I prefer having to think about things in a different way other than here's a set of rules, follow that. I'm a bit of a rule breaker.
You don't sound very excited about the accountancy situation, but let me encourage you and motivate you. One of the best property investors that I know is an accountant and a mentor, and he teaches big property investors how to be more efficient. So you can be an accountant without being the boring guy in the office looking at VAT. That doesn't have to be you. There's so many things that you can do with the skill that you are learning, and that doesn't necessarily need to be the stereotyped accountant that you imagine, working with a pile of paper. You don't need to be that guy. You can learn and use the skill in many different ways that can be very exciting and not boring at all. Tax and accountancy can be an interesting topic if you are applying and talking to the right group of people, not just filing accounts every self-assessments. That's boring. You can do other stuff as well. And with that, I think we can finish. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you, for your time and for kind of questioning and challenge me on some topics. And thank you so much.
That's right. No, well, thank you for. I think you reached out first, so thank you very much for reaching out. It's been a great pleasure to have you here and listen to you talk. It's always nice to talk to knowledgeable people and learn from them. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And I'll be seeing you guys around. Have a lovely rest of your Sunday, and yeah, enjoy it. Thank you very much, David. See you
Thank you.
later.
Bye. Bye.